get started, I will call today's meeting for the Economic Development Committee to order August 17th. It's about 8:33 a.m. And Ms. Everett, may I please get a roll call?
Sure. Chairwoman Chavez.
Here.
Member Selman.
Here.
Member Renahan. Member Eckhoff.
Here.
Member DeCiani.
Here.
And Member Rutledge.
Here.
Wonderful.
Agenda, please.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like to, can I request a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting on June 15th?
Second.
Wonderful. And can we just do a voice vote on that? I'm guessing? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, for Chairwoman's remarks today. Oh, and welcome Member Renahan and Member Deacon Garcia. No, you're fine. We've just got started, so you haven't missed anything. So first, I want to thank everyone for their support of economic development and recovery in DuPage County. To see the board appropriate over $10 million on the Reinvest Small Business Grants was a critical commitment to the recovery of our local businesses. I really want to thank Choose DuPage and our auditor's office for their cooperation with these grants. This was an essential lifeline to so many of our small businesses. I was happy to see that our board also continued to support Choose DuPage and allocate ARPA funds toward economic retention. And as you are aware, the economic recovery of DuPage County will require a multi-pronged approach and must include one of our hardest hit industries, and that's our Convention and Visitors Bureau and our tourism industry. So I want to continue that discussion as we do today. As we know, every dollar that we put into these economic recovery industries, we get a return on. So I think it's a very wise investment. So with that, do you have any public comment?
No.
Okay, so we have some informational items, MedGen products, incumbent worker training memo. Lisa, do you have some information there?
Yeah, so I'll speak to all three of these. Two of them are local manufacturers. One is a local IT firm. Just as a side note, we already, as you know, our program year starts July 1. We're already off to a really hot start with incumbent worker training grants, which is a great sign that companies are investing in their current workforce. I'm sure that's only going to continue escalating as people are having trouble finding qualified workers to hire. And so they're choosing to upskill existing workers, which is great. So two of the manufacturers, this Medgyne Products in Addison is purchasing some robotics equipment, and they need to train their staff on how to utilize that correctly. And that one's for the full $25,000, which is our cap. The other manufacturer is Laser Technologies in Naperville, and they're doing a whole slate of training to upskill various parts of their workforce. And then MindSight is an IT firm in Downers Grove. And as you can see, there's some kind of complicated different IT technology related trainings that they're doing for just shy of $25,000. As one other reminder on these, we look for companies projects that are going to lead to promotion or pay increases for the workers that are undergoing the training. We look to support apprenticeships and things like that with these grants, and all three of those check that box as well.
How many employees in total you think we're affecting, would you say?
Over the course of a program year, it really depends. Sometimes we get like a company-wide training that will kind of spike the numbers, like 200 GelCert employees, for example. One year we did. I can't recall how many we did in total last year, although we're working on our year in review, so that'll be included in there. But it's in the usually around maybe between 200-300, something like that.
The motion placed on file.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks. All right, so now we'll move on to resolutions. I'd like to request a motion to approve EDR 038121, a resolution. It's an amendment to resolution EDR 0516-20, approval of issuance of payments by DuPage County to training providers through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Grant. Great. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion passed. Or any opposed? The motion passes. All right, I'd like to request a motion for EDR 038221, a resolution acceptance and appropriation for additional funding of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act intergovernment agreement. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. And I'd like to request a motion for EDR 038321, a resolution for acceptance and appropriation of additional funding for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Trade Adjustment, fiscal year 19, intergovernmental agreement number 19-661006. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right, moving on to budget transfers. We've got one budget transfer to provide funds to reimburse the trainee program tool bag that was allowed by the Illinois Tollway Grant under supportive services.
So moved.
Great, can I
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. All right, anyone have any old business to address today? Member Selman.
Just to sort of follow up on your chair remarks, I know we all still have ARPA funding that we are reviewing, and I just want to encourage anyone that has questions about DCPD to reach out to Beth Marchetti. She is our expert in this field, and I think if we want to make sure we're making long-term investments in hospitality and tourism, she's who we need to be consulting and really working with on that field specifically. So if any of you haven't had a chance to speak with her, she's very available. So make sure you ask whatever questions you have so we can get a productive conversation with them.
Yeah, and I think just to update everyone on that, I have asked our finance department to get more intimately involved in this. I think that was a critical piece that was maybe missing when we came to the floor the first time. We want to make sure that everything obviously is ARPA approvable, that can be anything that is allocated can eventually get appropriated. Of course, they're right in the middle of budgeting season, so it's been a little busy. We are scheduling a meeting for next week. But I think that the board has generally indicated that they have a strong interest in supporting this industry and supporting our designated Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I think, like I mentioned in my chairwoman's remarks, it's so important. I know that when we give to the Care Center, it's such a critical component of what we do here in stormwater, but when we really invest in economic development, we actually get a return on those dollars. And so I think that is something to keep really in the forefront of our mind. I know it's hard as we're handing out these dollars to figure out where to really prioritize, but I just don't think we can go wrong when we put some of these monies where they're truly intended by the act and into our local business. So thank you all for that. And that of course includes our hospitality industry. So any other, Julie, or
Yeah,
Brennahan.
I guess I'm just wondering, where are we in terms of, has she come back with a trimmed down request? Because I mean, here we just saw the governor gave 10 million to tourism statewide, and yet we have a request for 15 million just for one county.
Right, so she did come back so what we're kind of working with now is about a $7.5 million ask. There were some questions about whether or not those could all be ARPA funded. So that's why I've tasked our finance department with working with some of our collar counties to say, hey, how are you supporting your local Convention and Visitors Bureau? What are some of the buckets that are really working well for you? And I think now finance is going to reach out to our collar counties, find out what's really working in our local areas, find some true successes, and that way they're comfortable. I think there were a few areas where they just weren't necessarily 100% comfortable about them being ARPA approved. And we just want to make sure that when we come back to the board, 100% of this has been vetted by finance, that it's truly what Beth needs, obviously, to support her industry. So we're just regrouping, but yeah, we did come back with, as the board requested, a much smaller ask. And I think though, to your point about that $10 million of the governor's funds, I got an email from Beth. I don't believe she's actually eligible for any of those. So a lot of these buckets that we may see that we think, oh, that would be great, you know, she's going to be able to pull from those. That's not one that, it's something that maybe we can pull from for certain festivals and events, but it's not necessarily one that she can pull from. So I can try to get some more detail on what's truly available to her. But I think sometimes when we hear about these things, we think, oh, that's going to be a perfect match, and it isn't. So.
And I think too, you know, we are right next to Cook County. We should look at what Cook County's putting into their tourism, their Chicago as well, because you know, we're not Kane, we're not, we've got a lot of destination museums, we have a lot of arts, we have opportunities, you know, I mean, so if anything, we should be looking at more toward the east, because I'm sure they're putting a lot of resources rebuilding their industries that are taking a huge hit with COVID. So,
I think that's a fabulous point, and I think to your point, they're just so much more funded. I mean, they don't have the cap that we're dealing with at a state level.
right,
When we know that we're putting $21 million into the state bucket and only getting $1 million back, that's not something that Cook is dealing with.
right.
So they have a bigger bucket to draw from, and that's something that we have to appreciate that we're
Sure.
dealing with and that Beth is dealing with in her industry. So thank
Mhm.
you for that input, Member DeStratton. Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Kind of piggybacking on Member DeCiani's comments. I've been a small business owner for 30 years. If you don't spend money to tell people what you do, they won't come. So I'm a little dismayed that there is some, shock about what she's asking for. This is marketing. It's not costs that we have to put out that get no return to us. So I will definitely be supporting Beth and what she's asking for.
Well, thank you. I think that's a tremendous point because we have to remember return. When we, even though we need the HVAC system at JLB, we aren't going to ever see a return on that invested. It's critical and it's an important piece of what we do here at the county. But this is where we really make movement in what our economy is.
Especially now recovering from COVID.
Yeah.
Coming from District 2, I support Oakbrook, Elmhurst, all these towns have tons of hotels, and we've actually seen some of our hotels actually sell their shuttle buses because they were hard on money. So when it gets to that point, it's tough. You're selling your means of transportation for your visitors. So I've heard from my hoteliers, they're struggling. And in good times, they brought a ton of money in for our towns, hotel, motel money, sales tax, entertainment tax. I mean, so they've been a great provider of funding for this county and for our communities. So I think really, and they put a lot of people, so we really need to step up and support them because they will have a comeback. We want to make sure that they come back strong.
And we may just need to give them a little bit of that bridge to get there because right now it's tough to book the rooms for them during the weekdays. They're not seeing that business travel. I think the weekend is coming back, but with rising COVID numbers, that could even be at risk potentially. So I see Greg Bedell.
I just wanted to mention, I don't know if you all heard, and I'm sure Beth would make you aware, this report came out this morning that Illinois is 50th, dead last as a state in recovery in terms of hotel motel since the onset of the pandemic. Interestingly, maybe not ironically, the central business district, blue, is the hardest hit. People are not going back into the city. Some suburban recovery is starting to show. And I guess to all of your points, obviously it's your decision. There is an opportunity to kind of position DuPage County as a suburban leader in this recovery effort. I don't know what that solution is. I don't want to swim in Beth's pool, that's her call, but it was really telling when Illinois is dead last in recovery from hotel motel revenue post-pandemic.
Why is that?
The primary reason is Chicago is a business-focused travel destination, and there are, the states, to be blunt, the states shut down, and there's a great reluctance because of the Delta variant spike for conventions to come back to the Chicago market. And when conventions come to Chicago, there's obviously spillover into the suburban market as well. The industry believes that I'm not an epidemiologist or medical, they believe that the spike will go down and we'll start to see some upswings. But the important statistic was just, again, to drive home the point, dead last.
Right.
That's not a place we want to be.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, though. I mean, if the inhibitor to economic development or success is COVID, I don't know that spending a lot of money on marketing is going to combat that. I mean, to me, I want to make sure we're maximizing how we spend the dollars. So I understand what you're saying, and I like the thought of, making us a destination, but I also think, are we chasing something that really is health driven versus economic driven?
And I think it is a combination to your point, because I think some of the things that we're impacted by is the fact that we don't have like California and Florida are recovering because they have beach weather and, you know, they survived the winter a little bit better and they hung on a little bit tighter. But I do think no matter what, we'll need to compete with what other markets are doing. So if other markets are doing some marketing, it's not like we want to fall off the radar completely. I can appreciate that we want to be careful with those dollars, and I appreciate that feedback. So go ahead, Member Selman.
I wanted to echo something that Member DeCiotti said in District 1, and I think I maybe mentioned this to you a week or so ago. There's a lot of our communities in the whole county are not home rule, and so sales tax on hotels and motels allows them a lot of opportunities. Like Member DeCiotti was saying, if I look at my district specifically, Itasca, Wooddale, Bensonville, I don't think is home rule, correct? They all are, and Addison are known for these fantastic summer events. That's why people live in my district, is you have this awesome sense of community. None of that happens if all those hotels are gone, and we have the opportunity to give them that bridge. So, you know, knock on wood, in 5 years, when hopefully this is all behind us, we have a vibrant industry supplying that tax revenue to our municipalities, or we miss that opportunity, like Member DeCiotti says, it all goes to COVID.
Right. Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chair. Based on what Greg is telling us, I think that this is a unique opportunity to kind of get the jump on Cook County, which requires us to get our information out there. Marketing is different. It's just different. And I hope that our members will understand that people won't come here if they don't know what we're doing. And so it's important to give her that money.
Member Eckhart.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, I understand what you're saying about COVID and all that, but everybody's got COVID. I mean, I think there's some impact to DuPage County based on the fact that you got a shooting gallery down in Chicago. And people don't want to come back down there because they don't feel safe. So, you know, I think that has an impact on us, an impact on us.
Maybe that's where we can position ourselves as a safer option as well. So
Just one more point, because you mentioned the tourism money that potentially is coming from the state. That's part of a bigger package, the Back to Business grant program that the governor has and legislature has enacted. Just since I'm here, Lisa, Lisa knows this, and you may all know this, but as that pertains to economic development initiatives, it's only for disproportionately impacted areas. And in DuPage County, we have two: the eastern portion of Aurora, the DuPage County side of Aurora, and parts of Addison. But if any of you are thinking that that money can be used for economic development efforts from the state, whether it flows through Choose DuPage or the CVB or anybody else, it is exclusively for this. I don't know about hotels, but the economic impact dollars are exclusively for disproportionately impacted areas. Of course, we take at Choose DuPage, we take great exception to the fact that we are not a disproportionately impacted area. We think we were as impacted by COVID as every place else in the state, but the legislature disagrees with us.
Well, and I want everyone to feel comfortable. That's part of what we are looking at. And I don't want to, I'm afraid to say too much in this meeting because I do want everyone to know up front that this ask may change as we get more information from finance and find out what Cook is doing, what other collar counties are doing. But the redefined ask was looking at about $2.5 million in bid fees for sports events, 2.5 in large group and convention incentives is probably the best word, and then 2.5 for marketing. So the ask for marketing, to Member Renahan's point, did go down a lot. As far as the incentives, finance wants to have a little bit more comfort that those are truly appropriate uses of ARPA funds. So we're looking into that. But I think the nice thing about this is all of these are so forward looking that we don't necessarily have to worry about, you know, hopefully, and I know we're all hoping we're going to get beyond COVID and it keeps tricking us in some ways. But when Beth is looking out to 2024, those bid fees won't be spent unless we have a firm commitment from that either sporting event or convention event. So literally we don't spend those dollars until we secure that business. So I think one of the bits of feedback that we got from the general board was that we want to know that our dollars are being spent well and aren't just being thrown out there. And that was a nice way to show ROI, I felt like, and to secure that and to allow the board to have a comfort level with that. So we're hoping that we can make that work. Of course, we want to make sure that finance is completely comfortable. So that's where we're at. And that's why we're just giving ourselves a couple more weeks to really vet things. Now that's where we're at now. Once we get, like I said, more information, because I have tasked finance, it may change a little, but I want to be completely upfront and honest with where we are now. So.
I think to member Echo's point, DuPage is really, we're seeing a huge surge in real estate purchases. Elmhurst is on fire, Wheaton's on fire. Addis, I mean, every town is pretty much on fire. The supply of housing is very low. People are fleeing the city because they want safety and they want to go to schools. They want to be closer to their job possibly. But I think that marketing effort and showing a lot of our downtowns are walkable and they're open air, and we have Addison's got the big festival by the city hall, and Elmhurst has got a beautiful walkable downtown. I mean, these are all assets that the city really doesn't have. You know what I mean? So
agree.
so I think again, hopefully we can push that and hey, we're open, we're safe in many ways, safe with COVID, safe with law enforcement. We've got good presence in our community, so I think it's again, I think that the market kind of tells you when people are coming out here in droves. It's a pretty telling, so we should seize that moment.
I think so. And I think what's nice is that Greg, with Choose DuPage, I know that they can really combine some forces here to show that we can be strong in the tourism and hospitality industry, and how that does lead to businesses coming here and really finding a home here. So let's find that tie-in as well. So thank you. Member Renee.
I would just feel more comfortable if more of it was allocated to Choose DuPage versus just tourism, because I think, you're kind of throwing pennies in a well with tourism, hoping, and I feel like Choose DuPage, if we can bring businesses, we're bringing families and people, and your point,
Well, and I think we
long
had
term.
a good give, and I think Greg could speak to this, but we did promise the $4 million, I think $1 million a year. Let me pull up my notes here for the ongoing, what's the name of that program, Greg? It's that you're doing with the chairman. Can you speak to that a little? And then we also promised $3.5 million. Can you speak to those two buckets and how they'll be used?
I don't know if Nick has it currently above the line, below the line, in the middle of the line. I don't know where I'm at on the page.
You are above the line by the vote, and
Yeah.
I think those have been out.
But we did make the request for funding for a regional economic development initiative in conjunction with the 7 collar counties, the city of Chicago, on promoting all of northeastern Illinois. And as a component of that, we made a request for marketing efforts, not only for DuPage County's economic recovery efforts, but as well as the region's economic recovery effort. And for the record, as always, Choose DuPage stands ready to work with the CVB on a collaborative marketing initiative like we did last time with our program. And if we determine internally, because we don't know if we're officially above the line or below the line, because you all haven't adopted the resolution yet, if this august body decides that we should work on this marketing initiative with the CVB, with the money you allocated to Choose DuPage, we will do that. We can figure out a way to make that work.
Yeah, thank you. Greg, but your efforts stop at the Collar County lines, is that correct?
I don't want to wholeheartedly disagree, but we are part of the regional economic development initiative that we're working on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kind of dominate this commentary,
I
but
think we need this clarification.
we're kind of working towards the notion that an economic development victory for DuPage County is not taking a piece of business from Chicago and bringing it out here, or having something from Will come to DuPage, or vice versa. We are intending on expanding our boundaries, Member Rutledge, to states and regions that don't have the labor force, the talent, the infrastructure that our region has a lot of challenges. We all know that. We also have a lot of assets. And our intent is to go beyond our traditional boundaries and go into states and countries collectively and collaboratively to promote true regional economic development growth. So do we focus on DuPage? Sure. But from an attraction perspective, our vision and our mission is to expand and push those boundaries further than we've ever done it before.
So I guess what I'm trying to point out is your efforts are to the business community, where I think our Visitor and Convention Bureau reaches out to tourists and families. And I think there is a distinct role for both of you. And again, I think we need to support both.
Thank you, Member Rutledge. And I would say that too. I think we've got a hub and a spoke that we need to be thinking of. And we have supported Choose DuPage. I know Greg has been great about coming to the table with what his needs are. But I think we've also got to look at the several spokes out into other parts of our economic recovery. And one of those that I believe is truly critical is supporting our Convention and Visitors Bureau. So member
It's
Hellman.
just sort of echo member Rutledge's comments. I guess I think of Choose DuPage and the DCBB as both big circles where there is some overlap in the Venn diagram. But Mr. Bedloff's not booking sports events out 5 years.
Right.
He's looking for manufacturers or for permanent facilities, whereas Beth is looking for income that we can be planned out in 4 or 5 years that supports hospitality, restaurants, all those tax revenue things where there's not a cost for us to support those people. There's just the revenue. So that's why I see both industries as sort of two sides of the same coin where, of course, there's a little overlap. You're promoting the same fantastic county, but there's just not, it is, I think, presumptive of us to tell the experts, Mr. Bedloff and Ms. Marchetti, you all should be working in this specific way when I think you guys have worked really hard to be collaborative, especially since the pandemic and to find overlap, but I feel like we're telling you to find overlap that doesn't exist, and I don't like when we do that because I think we have asked you two to be the experts in your fields and to bring us your expertise, and so I think we should follow that expertise.
Well, think about this as a member of both, as a former mayor. Beth Marchetti would focus on our museums and our hotels, and Mr. Bedloff was worried about our industrial park and our retail. So two different areas, but yet they work
I
together.
cared about all of Elmer's.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't stupid, Pete. I cared about your downtown. Cronin's from Elmer's.
We love you too. So, you know, this is why I don't think this will ever be one particular unit. They can work together collaboratively, but different missions. We want to bring people in from Cook County and let them spend money in DuPage. That's not poaching. That's called, guess what? You got a great downtown, come celebrate it. You know, North Lake and Melrose, they come to Elmhurst all the time. So we're glad to take their money, you know? So.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. It's really, I like it that you're thinking of it as two circles that do overlap in some areas and we gain the benefits in those economic areas, but we do have two different missions.
Right,
So,
right.
all right, any other comments? All right, any new business? All right, fantastic. Can I please get a motion to adjourn? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.